Welcome, everybody, to our CEWT podcast. This is Continuing Education Workforce Training, CEWT. We like to call it CEWT. We are part of the university's continuing education division. We put on a lot of the non-credit courses in our community across our region, apprenticeship, workforce training, and things like that. This podcast serves as part of our outreach effort where we bring interesting people and folks from our region in and talking about different things. So today we're having our city councilman, Rick Cheatum, is going to be joining us. We'll be talking to him about what he does on the city council. Our format today is going to be very conversational. We're going to talk to Rick about anything that comes across. It's focusing on him, and we'll be going for 20 minutes. At the end of 20 minutes, wherever we are, we stop our podcast. And we began that 20 minutes when I said welcome. So welcome, Rick, to our podcast. This is a little bit different. Like having you here. Appreciate you making the time. Thank you. Why don't we begin, though, by having you say a little bit about yourself, maybe your background, and how you got to become a city councilman.
I'm originally from Kansas, Gary. I moved here 42 years ago as part of a broadcasting company. My degree is from the University of Kansas in broadcast journalism. I'm a radio journalist by college degree. I've had a colorful working career over the past 50 years. I worked at 3 different radio stations, 2 in Kansas, 1 here in Pocatello, and was fired by the company that brought me to Pocatello. They stranded me here 800 miles from home. And I was offered a job by a car dealership in town that's no longer in business, and thought, well, shoot, I can do that till I can find a real job again. And it turns out that was the most fun job I think I had in my entire life. Met thousands of people, sold thousands of cars, worked for that dealership for 4 years, went to another dealership, worked there 16 years, went to another dealership, worked there a year, and decided it was time to do something new. So I went to work for a credit union, worked there a year, didn't particularly like what I was doing for that credit union, left them, got back into broadcasting for a short time, and then went to work for the ISU credit union and finished my working career there after roughly almost 12 years. And one of my dreams, when I first started out in broadcasting, I was in Garden City, Kansas. Little town, in those days about 18, 20,000 people, a hub in that particular portion of western Kansas. And working for a little radio station with a 5,000 watt AM and a 50,000 watt FM, simulcast on everything we were doing. And my job was chief engineer, news director, and farm news director. And I also did an air shift during the day. I played oldies, 40s and 50s stuff, from 10 to noon every day. That was what broadcasting in small markets was in those days. So I played for my grandmother. That was my target demographic, was my grandmother. So that's what I did from 10 to noon every day. And then I'd go out and sell advertising and gather up the news for the next day and record newscasts. But I became fascinated by covering city government. You go to those city council meetings, and they had a city manager form of government. That is, they had a weak mayor that was elected by the council people, and they had a city manager. And the manager ran the city, which used to be pretty common. It's not as common today as it used to be, particularly in small towns. But I found it fascinating. I'd sit through those city council meetings, and their council meetings would start at 9 o'clock in the morning and usually not end until noon, 2, 3 o'clock. They were very long sessions, and they were every other week. And I found it fascinating. So I said to myself then, this is 1973, that I want to do that someday. So after I retired with a timing goal that I could make this work. I knew at that time, 2 years ago, that Gary Moore was going to retire. He was not going to seek another term. He'd already been on the council 3 years, 12 years. 3 terms, 12 years. He was not going to run. And I'd always said I wouldn't run against an incumbent. If a guy's doing a good job, leave him alone and let him do his job. He's learned how. And something I've learned the hard way in this business, it takes a year or two to figure out how this council business works. So I started attending meetings, and to know that I was going to be dedicated enough to the job to be there every time there was a meeting. No excuses. That when the meeting starts at 9 or the meeting starts at 6, I'm going to be there and I'm going to be there every time. I've missed one council meeting, regularly scheduled council meeting in the last year and a half. And that was a hunting trip I had planned in Kansas, and sorry, that took precedence. So I did that. So I missed one meeting, but I wanted to know I had the dedication to do that before the actual filing date came up. And it was, for me, for the position I was running for and who I am, I found it a pretty easy election. I've met thousands and thousands of people in Pocatello over the years selling cars. I sold Hondas for Ted's when that dealership was in existence. And I wish I had tracked all the cars I sold. My rough estimate is I sold about 2,500 new Hondas and about 4,000 used cars in 21 years. And I met a lot of people, made a lot of friends. And that really helped me through the election. We also had an issue at the time of the election that year that was the sign ordinance. The previous council had started discussing that the summer before the election, and it became a real contentious issue as to what to do about electronic signs in Pocatello and whether to ban them completely, which was what was proposed by some, or whether to find a way to regulate them so they wouldn't be the problem that they had been in the past. And I'm a pro-business guy. I did not want to see signs banned. I like signs personally, and I guess that goes back to my advertising experience. I like signs. I like to know where business is or what's going on. I like to be directed and help to find things, particularly when we're traveling. We just got off a 2.5-week vacation, and every time we came to a town we knew we were going to pull over in, I would know where the gas station was and where the food stops were and where the hotels were. I like signs. Mm-hmm. So that was an issue that I was lucky had come up, and I went to the sign guys and said, hey, I'm in favor of this thing, guys. Help me get elected. Let's see if we can make this right. And they did. So I got a lot of contributions. I spent almost $10,000 on that campaign. Some of it through contributions from the sign companies for time on their signs, most of it in cash, very little of it personally. I think I spent my total personal contribution was somewhere between $300 and $400. Wow. So I raised a lot of money, got out there, and that's what it takes to get elected in a town like Pocatello. And I suspect with as contentious as politics has been the last couple of months here in town, that when the elections roll around on the other side of the dais this fall, it's going to be a very expensive election.
Wow. So what I'm getting from all of this, I mean, what a great background for you and the experience that you've had working with people to come into what I see as a people position. Mm-hmm. What a great experience that is in preparation for this. Now you're in this job. You're in a role as city councilman. How do you see that role benefiting our community? Because you have other city councilmen that you have to work with, right? Mm-hmm. So how do you all work together to make things come out in the best manner possible for our community?
It's state law restricts a lot of what you're talking about, Gary. I cannot go to another council person and talk about issues that the council is probably going to be facing, except when we're in a meeting. I can't go to somebody's house or meet them for coffee and say, hey, what are we going to do about this, or what are we going to do about that? You can't do that. That's in violation of the open meetings law. The public has a right in this state, by law, to know and participate in those discussions. Right. So they have to be agended ahead of time. The public has a right to know where you're meeting and when you're meeting, and to be there and at the very least listen to those discussions. Okay. So it's been interesting. I was apprehensive about some of the people that are on the council and how well I could work with them. I'm a conservative, and my values are radically different from a couple of those people on the council. But I find myself voting with them more often than I would ever have expected. It's been an interesting experience to sit next to or on the dais with other members of the council and have to say what you're thinking, say it out loud, so the public knows your thought process and the people next to you know, so we can discuss how we're going to solve the problems. Good issue is this, we've all been listening to the police firemen's issue on the pay raises. Mm-hmm. And I thought it worked out very well. The initial offers on both sides were extreme. And that's what, unfortunately, our local media picked up and made an issue of, because it sells papers and it brings readers and viewership. And but it worked out very well. We wanted to be, the council uniformly wanted to be able to give all the city employees a raise. That hasn't been done for a long, long time. Many of those people every year were sawing their disposable income shrinking because their raises were not keeping up with the CPI, the cost of, the consumer price index. But this year we were able to give every employee a 4% raise. Hasn't been done since 1979 in this community.
So that was a good outcome this time
Great
around.
outcome. And you've seen, there's difference between fire and police. Well, let me take an opportunity to explain that I don't think you're going to see on the general media. Every employee gets 4%. The fire department is on a separate contract from other employees in the police department. They don't get step increases with their raises. So they got a 6% increase. The police department got an equivalent raise, and employees got 4% plus a step, which works out to roughly 6%. So across the board, virtually every employee got a 6% raise, which is huge. Cost the city $1.8 million. And our budget increase is 1.5. So we've cut deep into other things to be able to afford to treat our employees right.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. How do you research something like that? I mean, if you're not able to talk with others on the council beforehand, you have to get ready for this. How do you get ready for things like this? Read
the agendas, and when an issue comes up that you can't know everything. Lord, there's 730 employees at the city in the summertime, 650 or so in the winter when there isn't so much parks and rec stuff going on. A lot of it's relying on staff. Mm-hmm. And asking the questions of staff in a public meeting, or perhaps ahead of time, going into somebody in street or in road or in parks and rec or whatever department it might be, and say, hey, what does this mean? What is this? I don't understand. Government is big on acronyms, as I'm sure you're aware. Mm-hmm. And every time I turn around, I ran across one reading some stuff this morning. I got to go figure out what it means. I don't have any idea what CIP is, but I'm going to find out. It's in our new rate study. Haven't run across that one before. But you got to dig and go down and look and read all the stuff. One of the contentious things we had yesterday is one of the council people saying that council shouldn't get a raise. They don't do anything. That's one of our own council people saying that. And the rest of the council saying, wait a minute, you're the one who doesn't show up at all the extracurricular activities that citizens want us to participate in. In the last 12 months, the council individually has participated in 160 meetings, most of those at least an hour, and many of them several hours. And this one council person doesn't do anything but come to study sessions, budget sessions, and council meetings. He doesn't do any of that other stuff that we're asked to do. And I don't know how it would work out by the dollar, but it's not a high wage rate. I doubt we're making minimum wage, but we didn't get into this for the money.
You got into this because you wanted to make a difference.
That's right. That's right. This community's been really good to me, and I wanted to do something back for the community.
That's excellent. And I think everybody would appreciate, the councilmen who are all working on behalf of our community, trying to make things better in any way possible as we grow, as we want to grow. We want to do things smartly. We want to do it with a lot of wisdom. And certainly a lot of issues, they rub across each other where people have different points of view. So it's a tough position to be in. So thank you for taking that and jumping into this. How long are you going to do it?
When I announced my candidacy, my intent is to be a one-term city council person.
Okay.
I am 68 years old. I'll soon turn 69. When my term is up, I'll be 71. If I ran again, that'd make me 75 at the end of my term, and I don't want to be 75 years old and still trying to do this. The energy that it takes, the effort that it takes, there is life outside of working. And it would take a lot of talk to get me to run for a second term. I don't intend to do that. And I think that gives me an advantage as a council person too, Gary. If I make a decision people don't like and it's the right decision in my mind, I don't care what the consequences are.
Nothing
I
to
don't
lose.
have to be reelected.
Yeah.
I'm not campaigning every time I make a vote on that council.
Mm-hmm. What else does Rick Cheatum like to do when he's not playing city council? You just came back from vacation.
I did. Went to Roswell, New Mexico for the UFO Festival. Interesting event. Spent 3 days at the NRA Whittington Center, a 52 square mile shooting range in Raton, New Mexico. I spent a couple of days with my family back in Kansas. I'm taking 2 of the female city council people to the shooting range here in a couple of weeks. They'd like to learn to shoot a gun. So I'm going to take them out there and see give them a little experience with something they don't like to do. That's my passion. My wife thinks I like to shoot just so I can reload, because that's what I love to do. But that's probably the only real hobby I have. I like to fly fish, but God, I haven't wet a line in 3 years.
Oh my!
Too busy shooting stuff. So,
you know, when I first got here, I went to a barber shop. I got a haircut, and I'm sitting in the chair, and there's some locals out there. They were all just having a good time talking. And I walked in, I got my appointment, and the barber says to me, he says, "You like to hunt?" I looked at him and go, "Well, no, I've done it. I don't really like to hunt." And they got quiet. And then one of them says, "You like to fish?" And my dad took me fishing as a kid, and that just didn't take. I said, "Well, no, I can't say I like to fish either." It got real quiet in there. And I feel like the pressure to say something. So I said, "Well, I like to get out in the mountains and hike around and climb." They go, "Oh, okay, that's all right." You come to Idaho, you're into hunting, fishing, or being outdoors and doing something. This is a great place for that too. So, what shooting range are you taking the young ladies out to?
The Oregon Trails Range, north of town.
That's the one north of town. Do you come off
2.5 mile road?
2.5 mile road.
Right.
Yeah.
Nice facility. It's undergone a lot of changes over the past few years, but we'll probably, if I can get the space I want, it'll take them to a 50-yard bay and give them some experience with handguns, rifles, shotguns, just to see what they want to do with firearms. The 2 of them are absolutely unfamiliar at all. Mm-hmm. They know nothing, and have never handled a gun before, which scares me a little. But we can control it. I really enjoy doing this with people, introducing new shooters to firearms, and I have enough firearms we can get a little experience with just about anything they want.
That's awesome. I've got a bunch of guns that my dad. He's passed away, but he's left to me, and I know I've got to do something with those one day. So maybe one day I'll get together with you and say, "Hey, come, let's get together and talk about firearms and."
Load them up, we'll take them to the range and try them out.
That would be awesome. All right, well, I want to get into something else that's happening here. You and I have kind of crossed paths in 2 or 3 different instances. I mean, I saw you at the Construction Combine. I've seen you with the United Seniors Project. I've seen you with the Gold Star Families Memorial Monument. I mean, you get around, but that goes back to the duties or responsibilities or just what city councilmen do. You do more than go to meetings inside chambers. You're out and about a lot.
And those things you mentioned, Gary, I would be doing whether I was on the council or not. The last few years that I worked for the ISU Credit Union, I was a marketing person. And to me, representing the business is doing those things and being seen and being recognized and making all that happen. So that's that Construction Combine, I got to give you and the rest of your staff, Scott and the whole group, a big kudos. That was tremendous.
It was. We've been very fortunate. That was a huge community event. You helped us out. You helped us push some of that information out, and we're still taking off. That thing has spread across the state. It's gone into a couple of other states. We feel that we are very fortunate to have been part of that. But like Scott, and Scott is on with another podcast later, we do extend that gratitude out to everybody else who's a part of that. So when I talk to foundations or when I talk to other people and they say, "How'd you get this thing started?" It's because of community. It's because of city. It's because of the vendors, the contractors, the employers, the education. It's the churches who contribute. It's everybody who makes things like that a success. So thank you. But that reflects back very well on you and the council and helping us out with that. We're going to do another one in 2020. which I hope is going to be even better. And you're invited to come on out and join us for that one too. So we will let you know. So thank you for that. Well, how about that, folks? We've reached another end here. I'm going to wrap this one up and say thank you to City Councilman Rick Cheatum, who's joined us. He's been a remarkable person to listen to, tremendous background, doing great things for our community. And if anybody wants to reach out to him, please, if you would say, could they contact you through the City Council?
Absolutely. Go to
All
the
right.
city website. The phone number and email address are there.
Great. So you know how to get a hold of him, and you can get hold of us through cetrain.isu.edu. Take a look at our newsletter, our blog, sign up for things. Let us know how we're doing. If you have something you want to see, let us know that too. We appreciate all that feedback. Once again, thank you, and thanks to all of you out there for joining us on Sweet Talk.
Thank you.